Hey guys, it's Fida and today we're going to be making a Christmas cake. This cake is in the shape of a Christmas tree. The outside is buttercream and I've already uploaded the recipe to it. It's my Italian meringue buttercream. You can go check that out on my channel. And the inside we have a chocolate cake. Since we're going to be carving this Christmas cake, I made this recipe especially for carving and I'll be uploading the recipe to this chocolate cake very soon. It's alright if you want to use a cake recipe of your own, but if you're going to be carving the cake, I would always recommend using a cake recipe that's specially made for carving. Because carving cakes are usually more put together and have pores that are more closer and tighter together. That way, when we're carving the cake, it doesn't fall apart or have too many crumbs. That doesn't mean this cake is not soft. This cake is just as soft as any other cake, but the only difference is that this has lesser crumbs and is easier to work with while carving. You can already see how it's more put together than usual cakes are. So here I've made two 6-inch cakes. A smaller 4-inch one to go on top of that, and again on top of that I have another little cupcake. On top of this cupcake we'll again have a little cone-shaped cake, but that is a little while later. We're not going to talk about that right now. I've cut both the 6-inch cakes into 2 layers. So that's totally giving us 4 layers plus the 4-inch cake and the cupcake on top. Now let's start stacking this before we can carve. Keep a cake board, keep your first layer of cake. Soak it with some sugar syrup. Do not skip the sugar syrup since it's a carving cake. It might have to stay in the fridge for quite a while, so you don't want the cake to dry out. So sugar syrup is always a must for cakes. Now put some frosting and spread that out. For the inside and the crumb coat of the cake, I'll be using some chocolate whipped cream frosting, but only for piping the rosettes, I'll be using buttercream. Now continue doing the same thing until you've stacked up all your cakes. I've kept the second cake layer, sugar syrup, add the frosting, spread that out, and continue doing the same thing. Next up is the 4-inch cake, so spread very little frosting only on the middle part. Now comes the most important part of this cake. Since this cake is really tall, we always need to give the cake some support and we need to be using some dowels for that. If you skip this step, there are very high chances that your cake may fall over or block to one side, and it's even going to be a lot harder to carve. So make sure to always give the cake a little support with dowels. So I'm just going to cut the dowels into the size of my cake. I'm keeping 2 dowels on either side. Now let's spread some frosting on the cupcake and keep that on top of this 4-inch cake. Now I'm keeping another final dowel right in the middle of this cupcake, and then we can begin carving. We need to carve it to the shape of a Christmas tree, so that way it's going to be more broader on the bottom and the diameter will keep decreasing as you go to the top. So gently keep carving, do not carve too much at a time. Just keep going slowly until you get the desired shape that you want. It doesn't have to be perfect because once we pipe the rosettes, it's not going to be seen so much. Now I've carved the cake and it's time to keep the cone on top. So what I've made this cone out of is just cake and frosting. It's basically like a cake pop. So I just took the extra cake that we cut off from the sides to carve the cake and I made them into crumbs, added a little frosting and made this little cake pop out of it. So I just shaped that cake pop into a cone shaped. Just shape it to fit the size of the top of your cake and it should be in the shape of a cone. So just like that. Now the shape of our Christmas tree cake is completely ready. Now it's time to crumb coat the cake. So crumb coat is basically just a thin layer of frosting that will keep all the crumbs together. And since we're going to be piping the rosettes on top, this crumb coat doesn't have to be perfect at all. You can just do it however you want and keep this in the refrigerator for chilling for at least 2 hours before we pipe the rosettes. Once you've taken it out of the refrigerator after 2 hours, it's time to pipe the rosettes. Here I'm just using my Italian meringue buttercream that's dyed with a really dark green food color and just going around the cake piping rosettes. It's alright if the rosettes are uneven, and even if there are little spaces in between, you can just fill that up with the buttercream. Once you're satisfied with how your cake has turned out, it's time to keep some decorations. I've just made tiny little balls out of red and white fondant and I'll be keeping that on this cake. Just randomly keep it everywhere you want and the final product is going to turn out amazing. And as a final finish, on top I'll be keeping a bow. I made this out of red fondant. So that was it for the Christmas cake. Let me know all your feedbacks in the comment box. Also, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Love cooking. Bye bye.